Hi, Richard Gage with Protecting All Protectors Alliance, protectingall.org. We're here at the opening of the National Fire Prevention Association convention, where we hope to bring to the attention of up to 5,000 attendees over these 3 days the unique free fall collapse of World Trade Center Building 7, one of the most unusual, to put it lightly, collapses in the history of high-rises. And with me today is Mr. Paul Kayley, a firefighter a former firefighter of 30 years, plus or minus, he'll correct me, coming all the way across the pond to help educate everybody here. Why, Paul, and how many years in the firefighting?
Yes, I've come all the way from England because I think this is a very important matter that needs to be discussed and increased awareness of. Yes, 30 years emergency services, British emergency services, 5+ as a police officer and 24+ as a firefighter.
This is awesome. Now, what do you hope to convey today to the attendees?
I'm personally going to be talking about the report that I wrote in 2016 and then the documentary that I made not shortly afterwards, and why I wrote that report and made that documentary.
Great. What's in the documentary? What's the essence of it?
The report I wrote in 2016, it's entitled Sudden Building Collapse, an evaluation of a new risk in operational firefighting, and it basically is a study of the fires and the collapse of this building from a fire service perspective.
Gotcha. And what's the problem here that we're trying to solve? What's the message that everybody needs to take home who comes by our booth and sees our banner stand? Did this building collapse from fire?
It's being said to have collapsed due to normal office fires, and that basically is what the problem is, because that doesn't make physical sense. In the United Kingdom and in America, fire services stand in these buildings comfortably and calmly while they burn, because they know that these buildings can tolerate established fires. And if what NIST is saying is true, then all of our procedures need to be changed, and they haven't been. We've stood in these buildings while they're on fire before Building 7 came down. We've done it ever since, and that really should speak volumes and tell us all we need to know.
Yes. These are the fires in Building 7. What's the problem?
There were normal fires mainly on 4 floors out of 47 floors. There were smaller fires higher up in the building, but they burned out due to low fuel levels and what have you. And as you can see, there were nothing spectacular. And when you look into the details, they had low fuel loading. They're only 22 to 32 kilograms per metre squared of fuel loading, which obviously means that because all fires have to obey the laws of physics and follow normal travel according to fire physics, the fuel levels were only able to sustain fires in any given location for 20 to 30 minutes. In the context of a building of this design, which was a fully fire protected structure with 3-hour fire protection on the main columns and 2-hour fire protection in the flooring assemblies, 30-minute fires in any given location should have just been no problem to it whatsoever. So the idea that could collapse due to fire doesn't make sense.
You guys, as firefighters, will go and put out these fires without fear, right?
Yep, we'll go in, and not always without fear. There's always danger involved. But we know from experience over many years, decades, that they aren't going to suddenly collapse on top of you. And we're so confident of it, the government is so confident of the United Kingdom, that they have established operational procedures where we go in and we set up a forward control point. We in the United Kingdom call it a bridgehead. In America they call it a staging area. And we use that as a management position so that we don't waste energy, air cylinder levels, all that sort of thing, when we go above that to deal with the fires. Yeah, it's recognised policy and it's never changed.
And now NIST says that there's a new phenomena, that fire-induced progressive collapse can happen in these buildings. How do you react to that claim as a firefighter?
That's why I basically did the investigation and wrote my report, because I needed to know. For my own personal safety, I needed to know. And then I needed to be sure that if I was going to make the rest of my colleagues and my profession aware of it, I needed to know that what I was looking at was correct. And when I followed the evidence and followed the data, without bias, without prejudice, due to the historical context of the event, I was overwhelmed with the results that I came across. And the evidence points to the fact that something else must have been involved.
So NIST says that this building came down by these fires
Yeah.
in 7 seconds at free fall, and I would imagine that would cause you some alarm going into putting out these fires in this kind of building.
Yes, and in the United Kingdom we have something called the Health and Safety Act. The Health and Safety Act is a piece of legislation which determines that if you find a risk or a hazard in the workplace, such as this possibility, then you need to report it to your employers, and then they need to investigate it properly.
Oh.
That's what I did, because obviously if this can happen, that's the risk.
That's quite a risk, and you don't want that to happen. But look at these fires now, Paul. How many of these buildings came down as a result of these fully engulfed fires?
None of them, did they? And actually, better than that, not only did they not collapse, but most of them have been refurbished and are still in use today, with the exception of Grenfell, obviously, because it's a very difficult and sensitive situation. Grenfell burned for over 24 hours, both on the inside and the outside violently. Sadly, 72 people lost their lives, but obviously that's still standing, whereas Building 7 was on fire for just a few hours, 5-6 hours, with moving fires nowhere near as dramatic and as aggressive as that, yet that fell in 7 seconds.
Now, this is a problem. I can begin to see the problems. What are we inviting of the NFPA?
What we're inviting of the NFPA, we'd like their support really, because if we look behind us, there's their banner up there. It says it's a big world, let's protect it together. They're interested basically in the health and the safety of the general public and making sure that it actually says in their charter or their information on their website that they want to protect society from misinformation.
Okay, and that's what we're doing here, protecting society from misinformation.
Correct.
Protectingall.org. Now, tell us about the petition that is going to the NFPA.
So,
what are we petitioning?
We're petitioning the NFPA to basically look at the NIST report and to assess the NIST report for validity in relation to NFPA standards and recommendations in that area, and to compare that with the Alaska University findings of their 4-year study of the exact same incident.
Gotcha. And how's it going so far? We've been here 2 days. What's your assessment?
It's been brilliant, and it's been really interesting coming all the way from England and meeting a lot of American firefighters and some very high-ranking firefighters and high-ranking individuals in the fire safety professions. And surprised to find out that people are very receptive to speak about this and willing to speak about it. And there's a couple who struggle to get around the historical context of the day. But once you start to examine this building in isolation with all that removed, and you examine the physics, for example, of the free fall, it's not that complicated. It's not difficult. It's the other stuff that stops us looking at it properly and objectively that gets in the way.
The Alaska report, or the Halsey report by the University of Alaska, involved 3 years. What are you aware of in terms of its conclusions about the collapse of this building?
I remember I was following this closely while I was writing my report, because it was going on at the same time when I was making my documentary. It's included in the documentary. And Professor Halsey was quite clear when he said at the end of it, fires did not cause this collapse. And they put a lot of time, effort. They use very honest and objective analysis to look at this. They haven't withheld any of their data. It's for the public to view, unlike the NIST data, and this data is still not being released to public view. They seem to be wary of people being able to read their data, and in the interests of good science, that to me is a conflict of interest.
And what were the actual conclusions of the report?
Basically that normal fires could not cause the collapse that was seen at Building 7, and that for that collapse to occur in the way that it did, the building would need to lose structural integrity over 8 stories instantly for that to happen, or to lose the structural integrity of all 82 columns.
Do you think these fires could do that?
No.
What possibly could cause this dramatic collapse then?
When you look at it without the biases that we go into this subject with, because it's a taboo subject, people have already got preconceived ideas of what's involved, and if you start talking about it, they immediately think that you've got some sort of strange paranoid delusions about something that's been going on. If you take all that away and you look at it in a purely physical as a purely physical situation, it's quite clear that if we were to, for example, if we were to adopt Occam's razor, which asks us to look at something and try to come up with the most simplest explanation for what we see, you can't deny that it looks like a controlled demolition.
Uh-oh. So you can see we're in the middle of a sensitive situation, because we're talking about the official NIST report, National Institute of Standards and Technology, and we've come to different conclusions as fire protection professionals, in my case architects, engineers, than the NIST report. And so that's the controversy we're bringing here. Are people open to the alternatives?
Personally, and we've decided when we're talking to people when they're first coming to, it depends how far along the path they are to examining this properly. If people are willing to take the advanced steps towards asking what actually happened rather than starting at the sensible starting point of what happens and breaking it down objectively, then we don't go there because it's too much for people to deal with. You're best to start with the simple facts first, build it in, let it settle in, and then go from there.
And they're open, most of them, from my experience, to the simple facts. If we just take them to step one, possibly two, we leave the other steps to them. Is that what you're doing?
Absolutely. And I spoke to a couple of very interesting firefighters yesterday, up to the rank of battalion chief in the New York Fire Department. And for them, it's a very visceral topic to talk about. And they struggle to come to terms with the simplistic practical elements of it, because for them it's much more complicated because of what happened historically and what they had to go through, their losses, etc. But it was interesting talking to one battalion chief, because whilst he understood that what we're talking about here is complicated from his perspective.
So we've got our work cut out for us the last couple of days, and today's the last day. Paul, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure.
And sharing with us your insights from the expo here. And thank you all for supporting us in this very important effort that we're making here at the National Fire Protection Association convention of 5,000 attendees. Richard Gage signing out.